Breaking news today.
Please subscribe and then check notification box to get all breaking news alerts.
1. Americans are racist. Listen to Obama complain that no one liked his policies because they're racist against him in this tirade. But that wasn't the only time. While speaking at the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation dinner in September 2014, Obama not only blamed police for black community mistrust, but also proclaimed that most Americans think the country is racist. The speech came not long after the death of Michael Brown in Ferguson, Mo, inspired violent race riots. Police desperately needed the support of the president at the time, but instead he chastised them. 2. If I had a son, he'd look like Trayvon. In another example of unnecessarily inserting himself into a sensitive racial issue, Obama proclaimed after the shooting of Trayvon Martin, "If I had a son, he'd look like Trayvon." Again, making that correlation was completely unnecessary. It served no purpose other than to make non-black Americans feel guilty and uncomfortable. 3. He told Latino voters to punish their enemies. Make no mistake about it, failed President Barack Obama was the most divisive president in decades. The left seems to forget the sick things he said and did. Let's recap just a few. In a radio interview with Divisive in October 2010, Obama urged Latino voters to punish their enemies and reward their friends who stand with them. Not only was this a strident call to racial politics, but it reinforced the dangerous and divisive liberal sentiment that anyone who thinks differently than them are not just opponents, but actual enemies. 4. He used the White House Easter prayer to attack Christians. In 2015, Barack Hussein Obama used his remarks at the White House Easter prayer breakfast to attack Christians. On Easter, I do reflect on the fact that, as a Christian, I am supposed to love. And I have to say that sometimes, when I listen to less than loving expressions by Christians, I get concerned. But that's a topic for another day. He made no mention of the massacre of Christian students by Islamic extremists at the university in Kenya just days before. 5. They get bitter, they cling to guns or religion. While on the campaign trail in 2008, Obama drew the ire of small-town working-class Midwestern voters when he chalked up their economic frustrations to racism. As Obama said at the time, they get bitter, cling to guns or religion or antipathy to people who aren't like them or anti-immigrant sentiment or anti-trade sentiment as a way to explain their frustrations. Obama couldn't have sounded more elitist if he tried. 6. He made up a white girlfriend to highlight race issues in his memoir. In his memoir Dreams from My Father, Obama details how he broke up with his New York girlfriend, who was white, over race-related issues. However, it later came to light that the New York girlfriend was not a real person, and instead a compression of girlfriends, including Genevieve Cook. In other words, he made up a person just to make a divisive racial point. 7. He called his own grandmother a typical white person. While on the campaign trail in 2008, Obama opined that his white grandmother once confessed her fear of black men who passed by her on the street. He attempted to walk back his comment afterwards, but he only made it worse. The point I was making was not that my grandmother harbors any racial animosity. She doesn't. But she is a typical white person, who, if she sees somebody on the street that she doesn't know, there's a reaction that's been bred into our experiences that don't go away and that sometimes come out in the wrong way, and that's just the nature of race in our society. He might as well have just come out and said what he meant: all white people are inherently racist. 8. He ignored the violence at Black Lives Matter protests. Obama frequently invited leaders of the often violent and militant Black Lives Matter movement to the White House. Despicably, after 5 Dallas police officers were murdered at a BLM demonstration in July 2016, White House spokesman Josh Earnest said, "I would not describe the White House as concerned about these protests. They're exercising their freedom of speech, they're exercising their freedom of assembly. That's a good thing. That's a good start." 9. He ignored black-on-white violence. After a black nationalist murdered 5 Dallas police officers in cold blood, Dallas Police Chief David Brown said the suspect said he wanted to kill white people, especially white officers. But when Obama commented on the shooting while in Warsaw, Poland, he said, "I think it's very hard to untangle the motives of this shooter." On the contrary, the shooter's motives were explicitly clear. Obama just chose to ignore them. 10. He constantly downplayed radical Islamic terrorism. After Tashfeen Malik and Said Farouk, who both had ties to ISIS, killed 14 people at an office Christmas party in San Bernardino, California, Obama urged the public not to jump to the conclusion that it was terrorism just because the perpetrators were Muslim. It is possible that this was terrorist-related, but we don't know. It's also possible that this was workplace-related. However, in the cases of the deaths of Michael Brown, Trayvon Martin, Freddie Gray, and others, Obama was quick to immediately, and incorrectly, jump to racism. 11. His hypocritical response to the Planned Parenthood shooting. While Obama exercised restraint concerning attacks like those in San Bernardino and Orlando, he positively exploded following the November 2015 shooting at a Planned Parenthood. If we truly care about this, if we're going to offer up our thoughts and prayers again, for God knows how many times, with a truly clean conscience, then we have to do something about the easy accessibility of weapons of war on our streets to people who have no business wielding them. Obama clearly let his feelings about the victims versus the perpetrator dictate his reactions. 12. He frequently invited Al Sharpton to the White House. Al Sharpton is an unabashed race baiter, and he visited Obama's White House no less than 100 times. In fact, Obama liked Sharpton's work so much that he made him the White House's unofficial race ambassador, sending Sharpton on his behalf to tackle sensitive issues such as the deaths of Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown, and Freddie Gray. Was there really no one else Obama could have picked for that job? 13. He called Americans lazy multiple times overseas. How's this for divisive? While speaking at a town hall in Los in September 2016, Obama, the President of the United States, called Americans lazy multiple times. If you're in the United States, sometimes you can feel lazy and think we're so big we don't have to really know anything about other people. The comment was certainly a jab at the soon-to-be-elected Donald Trump, who had vowed to put America first. 14. He said police acted stupidly for arresting black Harvard professor Henry Louis Gates, Jr. In July 2009, just months after assuming office in the White House, Obama proclaimed at a press conference that Cambridge, Mass. Police officers acted stupidly when they arrested black Harvard professor Henry Louis Gates, Jr. Obama had no evidence about what happened during the arrest, and no standing to make such a ridiculous, racially divisive remark. Police unions across the country demanded an apology, and Obama eventually walked back his statement. 15. The Beer Summit. Following Gates's arrest, Obama famously invited Gates and Cambridge Police Sergeant James Crowley, the arresting officer, to the White House to hash out the issue over a few beers. The Beer Summit severely downplayed the controversy surrounding the incident, and it angered many African Americans who had voted Obama into office just weeks before. As David Bozaitis of the Joint Center for Political and Economic Studies said at the time, Obama should have just passed on the question about Gates's arrest from the start. 16. He called Republicans the most potent recruitment tool for ISIS. During the height of the debate over whether Syrian refugees should be more thoroughly vetted, Obama said in an address in the Philippines that he couldn't think of a more potent recruitment tool for ISIL than some of the GOP rhetoric that's coming out of here during the course of this debate. It was just one example of many times the liberal likened Republicans to terrorists. 17. It's easier to buy a Glock than a book. If Obama's reaction to the murder of 5 Dallas police officers wasn't despicable enough, he also used his speech at the memorial service to push his anti-gun agenda. Bizarrely, Obama made a completely incorrect claim that it's easier for teens to buy a Glock than it is to buy a book. 18. You didn't build that. While on the campaign trail in Roanoke, Virginia, in 2012, Obama used classic Marxist rhetoric when he completely discredited successful business owners. "If you've got a business, you didn't build that. Somebody else made that happen." Like a true liberal, Obama didn't believe that it was possible for anyone to succeed without government aid. 19. So sue me. Continuing with the trend of divisive class rhetoric and his dictatorial, imperial use of the executive office, in July 2014 Obama defended his use of executive action to help the middle class by literally taunting Republicans. "Middle-class families can't wait for Republicans in Congress to do stuff. So sue me." 20. He never paid his fair share. Obama's war on wealthy Americans was a constant throughout his presidency, but his hypocrisy over this particular issue was fully exposed in April 2013. During a Friday afternoon news dump at the time, Obama demanded that the wealthiest Americans should pay their fair share in taxes. Yet, in the very same paragraph, the White House admitted that Obama had paid just 18.4% in taxes in 2012, a lower rate than Warren Buffett's secretary. Like us on Facebook. Together we will make America great again.